I'm with Bob Young, the Chief Economist of the American Farm Bureau Federation. Bob, you talked about the global miracle that agriculture represents in relation to worldwide population. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Well, since 1990, we've added about 2 billion people to the population of the world, and agriculture on a global scale has been able to feed those additional 2 billion people, plus lower the number of folks that go to bed hungry every night by about 200 million. We had about right at 1 billion people that went to bed hungry in 1990, and today we've got about a little less than 800 million or so that go to bed hungry every night. So we've added 2 billion people, plus fed another 200 million, which I think is a real miracle with the and really have an increased land area on a global basis by all that much when it gets right down to it.
And I know there's lots of answers to this question, but in general, what are some of the reasons Ag's been able to do that?
Well, we've been able to get, the old line of, grow 2 blades of grass where before one grew. We've seen some substantial yield improvements here in the United States, other countries around the world. We have brought on some additional land. In the Black Sea region, for example, there was some land that had gone out of production with the collapse of the Soviet Union that, has kind of come back into production. South America as well, but, really about better than half, 60–70% or so of that production increase really has come from increased yield.
Okay. Now you said there are 4 things you should ask any farmer about any farming system. What are they?
That's correct. We need to talk about how you take care of the bugs, how you take care of the weeds, how you feed the plant, take care of the plant's nutritional needs, and you got to talk about how you pay for it. Because we can talk about some system, for example, that doesn't take care of the bugs and they come in and chew up all the crop, and then what do you have? Or we can talk about a system where the weeds choke out the plant that you're trying to grow and your yields have been hit substantially because of that. Or we can talk about not feeding the plant and letting what happens when we don't feed a person. The plant's not all that different. We end up with situations that occur there as well. And again, if it doesn't make economic sense, kind of the line that we use, if it's not economically sustainable, it's no kind of sustainable.
Okay. Now you talked about how farming remains one of the most family-oriented business sectors in the U.S. But over the years, I've heard so many stories about the dying family farm. I mean, what's true? What is the situation out there?
Well, about better than 95–96% or so of all farms in the United States are family owned and operated. They may have 2 or 3 generations. They may have 3 or 4 different families working on it. They may certainly be incorporated for business purposes, for tax purposes, but it's still a family when it gets right down to it. That's getting up every morning and making sure the cows are taken care of, running the combine, just taking care of the farm. And that's just the way that U.S. agriculture is. Again, I think it is probably one of the most family-oriented business sectors in the entire country.
Okay. Now, organic versus conventional is a very kind of emotional debate for many people. Can you maybe talk about it a little bit as an economist? Is organic farming cost-effective?
Well, we have price premiums that we're willing to pay now for organic production, and so because of that, you can talk about, in some cases, a little better profitability for organic production than conventional production. But I would also come back and say that the costs associated with organic production for almost every crop, every livestock operation that I've seen, tend to be higher than they are for conventional production. So, once we finally get down to brass tacks, if we were to have strictly an organic production system, would you have to pay more for your food than you are today? Yeah, you would. And that's just kind of the way things are.
And finally, people are scared or skittish about GMOs. I mean, why are they so skittish about them, and should they be?
Well, first, they shouldn't be. I think there's been any number of research studies. We've just had a report out, 100 different Nobel scientists went on a report that said they're safe, that folks need to stop this process. I think it's easy for folks when they don't understand something, that frankly don't pay attention, don't do the work that it needs to understand how things work, to just be scared. It's easy for me to fight it. And we've had some folks that use that as a marketing tool, use that as a way to generate new demand for their product or whatever. You've got some announcements out, for example, that folks have talked about GMO-free lettuce, for example. And well, there isn't any GMO lettuce, but okay, if we stick that label on something now, we can command a premium for it and kind of roll forward from there. So it's fear and marketing, I think, more than anything else that is driving that process.
Okay, I think that's all I need. Thank you very much, sir.